Gugu, welcome and congratulations on your book.
Thank you very much.
Interesting title, Young and Busy Shaking the World.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Well, this book is about helping our young people to have a focus on what their fight is all about. So we, as the older generation, a lot of what our fight was about fighting for political freedom. So what this book is trying to get the young people to do is to say, we now need to focus on the economic challenge and what can we do to unlock and activate young people in the different sectors, in the different industries, and to actually make our young people believe that they can actually shake the world, even coming from Africa, especially.
So you are self-published.
Yes.
And that must have been pretty hard.
Very hard, because obviously it was my first book and I honestly did not know the industry very well, but it has given me time to just, again, for me, life is always about learning. So it gave me an opportunity to learn what is going on in the publishing industry. Yeah.
Just take us, into the core and the theme of the book. I mean, I understand, you speak about the fact that the book is for young people, inspiring them, economic emancipation. But what is the core theme that you want the reader to take out of the book?
The core theme, really, there are three things that are critical in the book. These are the all questions that everybody asks. The first question is about identity. One of the lies that we have lived with for a very, very long time is that we are our skin color, which is not true. That is not anybody's identity, okay? That's just a covering. So it's about explaining what is your true identity. And then the second key issue is about your purpose. What is it that you bring to the table, and how are you going to be using what you're bringing to the table for the emancipation of our people, so that we live in an equitable world? How do you bring what you have on the table so that collectively we can make our continent in particular rise to become the best continent it can become? And then the last one is about understanding the economy, resource allocation. How do you then, once you know what your purpose is, where do you find the resources to support the direction that you've chosen?
So I find your second one very interesting, and I think it speaks to the core of who I am.
Yes.
My life purpose. I wake up every day and I try to show up for my life purpose. And I know what my life purpose is in one single word. I'm a teacher.
Wow.
In everything that I do, at the core of who I am, my life purpose, my higher calling is that I'm a teacher.
Wow.
What is your life purpose?
Wow, okay. I'm going to have to say it's very similar to that. However, in one word, I think that mine is really about activation. Activating people in their purpose. Of course, I can teach as well, but that's not really my core. So I would work alongside you, which is another thing that we don't get very right often. Whereas you don't know what your lane is. So you keep on trading on other people's lanes. But if you know, as you rightly know, Basitsane, your lane is very clear. You're a teacher, as you've said. So mine is to activate people to understand who they actually are.
Wow, no, that's beautifully said. Writing is I call it a very lonely process. Having written a memoir, sleepless nights, moments of crying and sobbing, moments where I found that it was cathartic for me. But at the end of the day, it's a very difficult journey for an author. How did you find your own journey while writing your book? Take us through that, the highs and the lows, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, honestly speaking, it wasn't that challenging for me, because all I was doing was I was looking back at little Gugu when she was growing up, and what are the lessons that she picked up that she can pass on to young people. And I tell the story about, for instance, when I was appointed as a CEO of Umgeni Water, the second largest water utility in South Africa, managing 2,000 employees, and I had to decide what my identity was, because everyone who is anyone decided that I was not going to make it. I was just everything wrong according to the marketplace, whether it's the media, whether even some of the people that had appointed me did not have too much faith in what I could do. And then having turned around the largest water utility without any government intervention, everybody started to sit up and listen, because suddenly here is someone who is not going back to National Treasury asking for a bailout. And here is someone who just takes a water board and runs it like a normal business and is able to turn it around 2 years ahead of schedule. So now...
Girl, I'm about to give you a high five right there. Yes, ma'am.
So the storyline for me was very easy to explain, what was my journey. And I talk about how my identity was very important, because everybody had put me in a little corner. She is this color, she is, this gender, and so on. And everything that I had to put on the table was none of that. It had to be how I was created. It had to be what God had originally ordained in me to become. And that is what I had to express in that marketplace. And that's what I've been doing ever since, just trying to find a way in which I can make people understand that they are the image bearers of God.
Amen to
and
that.
God did not create anyone to be less than what everybody else thinks we are, just because of the gender, the color, where we are living in Africa and all of this. And by the way, Africa is in fact one of the greatest continents in the world. It depends on your mindset and how you position it. So I have chosen that Africa is gonna be the continent of the future. And that's how I organize my life. It doesn't matter what everybody thinks. It doesn't matter what the media says. In my mind and in the ordination of God, I really believe that Africa, with all the resources we have, with all the young, educated people that we've got on this continent, if we align with this wonderful growth story of our continent, Africa is gonna be the future and beat places like the USA flat down. I really believe that.
It comes across to me that your faith, your spirituality is your anchor. And I see here in chapter 3, His grace is sufficient. That's the title of chapter 3. You are never alone, chapter 4. Your journey as a Christian, as a spiritual woman, how has that impacted the woman that sits in front of me today? Because clearly that's your compass that you lean on in terms of your profession, having held such high positions in different companies. Just let's share about your spiritual path.
My spiritual path was worked on and nurtured on very early on in my life. I had grandparents. I was raised by my grandparents. My mom was based in Durban. My grandparents raised me in Bulwa, which is a rural area. I didn't even know I was poor. It didn't hit my mind that I was actually poor. I didn't even think about it. But my grandparents always said to me, remember, there will come a time that there will be people that are going to lead this nation. Once we've sorted out the political environment and we have a democracy, there will come a time when there will be certain individuals that must lead us to get everything that we deserve, and you need to be ready. And they raised me in the Word of God, and to believe that God is the essence of everything. So I grew up with that. But of course, like any teenager, at the age of 13, 14, I'm wondering, okay, if this God is fair, honestly speaking, why is the country in the mess? And then I started having a conversation with God, and God said, well, it's not my problem. I did not create this mess. Go and ask your government that is in place. Why have they chosen to implement the legislation and the laws that are in place? Because those are human created. It's human beings that decide that they're not going to change anything. They come into power, they've got all the power, they've got all the support of the majority of the people, but they choose to continue having these huge barriers that disallow the majority of people to be part of the economic story of the nation. And they subject their own people that look like them into slavery. And I started asking myself, what is social justice? What is economic justice? I was already in matric at this time. I was also starting to go into university, asking these questions. And of course, it was always odd because I was either the only so-called Black person in an environment, and I had to say to myself, is this the beginning of something? Is it the end of something? Why am I the only one? You know, some people were proud that, you know, I'm the first Black woman that did this, I'm the first. I just said, there's something wrong with the story. The majority of people are not sitting with me in this room. I've got all other races and predominantly male people in this room. There's something wrong with the picture. So I never celebrated this thing that everybody says, let's celebrate, you are the first Black CEO, female CEO of Umgeni Water. For many people, that was a celebration. For me, I asked God, I said, Lord, there's something wrong with this picture. So everything that I've always done has always gone back to what is the lens of God, not what is the lens of the people of the day.
Wow. I mean, I'm just, you know, I'm blown away. And I just want you to wear your corporate hat just for a minute. We know as women, we're triple marginalized or disadvantaged. And in this day and age, we still find there's a challenge with, you know, pay parity. It's 2022. What else should we be doing in being able to fast track the women's development, women's advancement in the corporate sector? And how important is it that women work together? Because you've touched on that theme, lifting each other, opening the door so that another woman can come into the boardroom, pulling up a chair so that she can also sit and lean in. Just in your corporate experience and what we should be doing now in 2022, just take us through your thoughts around that.
Okay, you know, Basitsane, there's a number of things that we can do. One of the things that we can do is to have a different lens through which we see women. I think even sometimes not even maybe aware, we always think that women are, you know, the second citizen, you know, they are not as good as men in certain jobs, for instance. So I think we need to learn, first of all, to take people as they are. We are created and blessed in the same way as men are. We just have a different role to play. So the way we raise up our children, okay, is very, very important to give our young girls that confidence that they are equal at the table. You know, when God said that to me, I was so mad. I said, what do you mean I'm equal at the table? Because I'm the only one at the table. And God said that every time you keep on emphasizing your gender, you are telling yourself you're not equal at the table. Emphasize your purpose at the table. Because your purpose at the table does not matter what gender you are. Because if you are a person that is concerned about economic justice, social justice, you will lift up everyone, as whether you're a man or a woman. But in this particular case, your lens will be particularly alive to those who are particularly disadvantaged. So one of the things that I did at Umgeni Water for Women's Day, and everybody thought I was crazy, I said to them, you know, guys, I think it's would be a good idea if we went and visited a rural village and lived a life, because I've been trying to get you guys to go and provide water to rural communities and you take forever. So maybe if we lived one day for the life of that rural woman, you would understand what I'm talking about. We got into a bus, everybody was given a bucket, and we went to rural Bolwa. And we got off the bus, and each person was allocated, whether you were male or female, was allocated a bucket. And that day, you were allocated a household where the woman would then be waiting for you. The rural woman would be waiting for you at that household, and then she would tell you what she does every day, where she fetches her water, and you would do exactly what she does. And when we did that with the team, we were about 600 of us, of these buses that we went with. And when we came back and people were forced to go and fetch water where there are animals that are drinking the same water, when people were forced to go to the river, when people were forced, it was raining that day, when people were actually had to go and fetch water in the rain, suddenly when they got back to the office, they realized how critical it was for us to liberate women on the ground at the point. So it always depends on the lens with which you look. Women have always been at the bottom, but when you are given a position of power and influence, you need to think through the value chain of where you can touch women in different ways and empower them, and where you can touch young people and young women in particular. We can say that, young women today, they're lazy or they don't want to do this and the next thing. The reason is because there are just so many other things that they are facing today than we were facing back then. So they need strategic guidance, they need strategic support, and no judgment. It's very quick for us, now that I've been in corporate CEO 3-4 times in my career, it's easy to say, oh no, they're not working hard enough. But do you understand the journey that they've gone through? Do you understand what they have been through? So it's very important for us to do what you have been doing, mentoring young women and helping them to believe that they can make it and they're equal at the table.
With what you know now, what would you tell a 7-year-old Gugu back then?
That's very difficult.
If you could write a letter to her.
If I could write a letter to her, I would say, be mindful. Do not take too many things for granted.
It just gave me goosebumps. Be mindful.
Yes, be mindful.
So
do not take things for granted. Every opportunity gives you the ability to influence. You can influence one person a day. You can sometimes influence 5 people. Sometimes you can influence 10 people. But the impact of those people and how you made them feel can be a legacy forever, right? So that's what I would say. Be mindful of how you engage with others, because the way you engage with them has a lasting impact. So that impact could be the only opportunity you have. This could be my last meeting with you. And what is it that I can leave that can have a positive impact on another person?
Let me tell you this. You've left me and given me such inspiration, because oftentimes people think, when you have a public life or, you're a mom, you're a wife, and that things can be easy. So you've reignited just something in me, but more so, I just want to really thank you for sharing your energy and bringing it so beautifully into the space. I appreciate you, I honor you, and indeed, congratulations on your book. Will you keep writing?
Definitely. I enjoy it, and I enjoy activating people in their space. There's nothing that gives me more joy than seeing a person. I minister also in Alex. I have seen gangsters go back home and build mansions. I have seen drug lords leaving drugs and become responsible young men. I have seen people activated. So it's never too late to write a story about someone. And I see all of these stories all the time, and I'm inspired. So I don't share the view, for instance, that our young people are lost. I have seen our young people so resilient under such difficult circumstances, but they have risen and done what needs to be done. So I will continue to write their story if they give me the opportunity to do so.
Well, go forth and continue to do the good work. God bless you. Would you be so kind?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Gugu. Wow. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure.